Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tracy Bivens Davis, and I am the Assistant Director of Training and Equity at Community Clinic Association of Los Angeles County. And we're excited to welcome you this morning to Enhancing Preceptorships with my colleague, my workforce colleague, Carlos Linese. Ooh. Carlos, welcome. The training is now being recorded and a copy will be made available after the workshop is via email. If you're disconnected, please log back in reusing the credentials provided to you after registration and via Outlook calendar invitation. The training center strives to provide a learning environment based on psychological safety to set the necessary context for you to speak your truth as freely as possible. We encourage you to be present, remain respectful and courteous, use chat responsibly, and provide everyone with an opportunity to speak. While in this main training space, we encourage camera use. We don't want Carlos to be out there on his own. So let Carlos see you and say good morning. If you haven't already done so, hit that chat and just say good morning. While in this space, you will remain muted so we can account for, make sure that we eliminate any of that background noise that may be distracting for you. Great to see you always. Next slide. All right. We also advise you to update your name on Zoom for acknowledgement by Carlos. We hope to have an interactive training and like to know who's present, and we will record your attendance. If you during our time together, you'll hear material from our presenter, followed by including a Q&A. Be sure, good morning, I see you hitting that chat. Be sure to use that space to ask any questions you may have. Those questions will be immediately forwarded to our speaker. If for some reason we run out of time, we will note your questions and send you those answers via email after training communications. Be sure to check your email after every training for post-training communications, and that includes checking your junk or spam mail folders. We'll make every effort to answer your question, and we appreciate you raising your hand to be acknowledged. So without further ado, I want to welcome my colleague, Carlos Linese, to share his screen and to say good morning on behalf of our Enhancing Preceptorship training. Carlos?
All right. Everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, let me see if I can see everybody here. All right, perfect. So, good morning, everyone. Again, I do appreciate seeing your beautiful faces this morning, but I do know maybe we're all not camera ready or we're multitasking a little bit, but as much as I can get your feedback through some nonverbal cues, which we'll kind of get in today too, when it comes to communication, will be helpful for me to provide a training worthwhile for you all. So once again, I am happy to see you all this morning. And I appreciate your engagement and everything in advance. So today we'll be talking about enhancing preceptorship and focusing mostly on effective communication skills. And see, the slide's not moving.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
There you
A
are.
little bit of a delay. Okay. So again, welcome to Effective Communication Skills for Preceptors. My name is Carlos Linese, and I am the Senior Workforce Manager here at CCALAC. I am over all things workforce, which encompasses our pipeline programs, our recruitment resources, our job board, our resume bank, as well as trainings and retention programs that are geared towards workforce development. Today, you'll see on the right our agenda. We will start off with this brief introduction. We will go into an icebreaker to hopefully get the blood moving a little bit, get the participation going. You know, we're here for 2 hours, and I'm hoping not to be the only one talking the entire time. But if I have to, we'll do it. We'll go over some objectives. We'll talk about the preceptor relationship, what a preceptorship is and what it is not. We'll talk a little bit about the value of preceptorship. Then we'll do a little word cloud exercise to kind of make sure we're talking about the same audience as we go to transition into talking about effective communication. We'll talk about the importance of effective communication. We'll talk about some of the elements that, if done well, will provide effective communication. I'll share a couple of my metaphors about how Effective communication is like preventative medicine for preceptorship. And then we'll get you guys to do some work here. We'll have you guys do some breakout roles with some role play scenarios to kind of work on some of the skills and some of the topics that we discussed earlier on about the effective elements of communication. We'll have an opportunity after that to debrief some of our findings, how we felt about certain things, what went well, what were some opportunities. We'll conclude, and then at the end of the day, I'll provide some resources because I know preceptorship is about much more than just effective communication. So I want to leave you with some other stuff that you could take away from here that might be helpful in each of your journeys as preceptors or as you look to become preceptors. First, I want to acknowledge our funding sources for which this wouldn't be possible. Kaiser Permanente, they are a big funder for us, and they invest highly in our workforce efforts, and we're much appreciative of that support. Otherwise, we couldn't do a lot of the work that we try to do. So as promised, we're going to start off with some icebreakers. So here again, I encourage those who haven't put their camera on to go ahead and throw those on. If not, please feel free to come off of mute. If that isn't going to work, then we also have our chat as a third option to be able to help communicate. So I did want to start some things off and just kind of get our brains going, right? Let's get a little bit of a foundation of where we are now when it comes to preceptorship. And I throw some questions up here in the slide to kind of get our brains going a little bit. So is there anyone out there that wants to kind of talk about maybe some conceptions that we currently have about preceptorship? Anybody not feeling shy this morning? I know it's early.
I'll go.
I appreciate that, Angela. Thank you so much.
Concepts and concerns, I feel like that's a very similar question. Mine
Okay.
is the same. It would be like time, how much time and effort would be needed to spend with, like a new staff. Is it just like a check-in session, or is it like an hour a day check-in or an hour a week? So having it more defined.
Okay.
Yeah. So in today's training, I want to learn more about how to better perceive someone, and also how to keep staff happy, as well as like onboarding new staff, what to bring back to the table for those who do train the staff as well.
Okay, perfect. I hope to give you some skill sets to kind of make that time effective. Prescribing a specific time is sometimes difficult, right? Depending on the role, depending on also the program where they come from, because a lot of times the program will have some things dictated that will be a little bit more prescriptive. But my hope today is to provide you with some tools in regards to communication that would make the time that you do have available for it as effective as possible. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. I did see a hand up. It went down. I'm not sure if that individual still had a question or a response. No? Okay. So I will try to popcorn some individuals here to try to get some communication going and get some engagement going as we start off here. Because again, I will be talking for a quite significant time after this. So I am seeing the name Roberto Soriano. Roberto, what do you think right now might be your strengths that you bring to the table as a preceptor? And sorry to call you out, but you just popped out.
No worries. Can you hear me?
That. I'm sorry?
Oh, can you guys hear me? All good to go?
Yeah, we can hear you very good.
Okay. Yeah, I think some strengths I have is just when I can relate to people pretty quickly. I have a lot of communication skills that I've acquired over just having a customer service background. So just having that awareness with folks can definitely help me out when percepting in various roles.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Rebecca, I'm going to popcorn over to you. What's something that you would hope to, Rebecca Rodriguez, what's something you might hope to accomplish in today's training?
I'll take myself off. Hi.
Thank you. How are you today? Good morning.
Oh, I was ready to answer the last question. So some.
Oh, answer that one if you want to. I'm sorry. Whatever one you feel like answering.
I mean, not that I feel like I've tons of strengths, but I was thinking we were along the, I'll answer sort of strengths. In terms of, I'm a physician, so I've been practicing for 15 years. I feel like I have just a breadth of sort of experience and passion in what I do to precept. In terms of what to gain today, I have to be honest, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect from today. I'm hoping to get a better sense of just how to make the most of time when precepting. So I would go with Angela. A concern that I have too is just in precepting, just trying to figure out how to get the most out of the experience with compacting time so that it is doable in our busy schedules.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Time is one of those finite things, right? They say it's the most precious thing we have. And, when we're talking about an industry where workforce is already constricted as it is, it could feel kind of counterintuitive to pull time aside and to invest really in this, in a preceptorship model. So, the goal today, again, would be to really make sure that you've got strong communication skills to help make that time, whether as long or short as it might be, to be as effective, but then also to provide some insight on really the importance of preceptorship. So I know a lot of times it could feel like extra work, right? My wife is a nurse practitioner, and I was going through my presentation with her yesterday. She's like, you need me to tell them from that position, right, of what things are like. And I was like, well, I wish you would, but you got to go to work. So that was really what I've always heard. And even when we're looking to get and gain that support in our programs, it's really about that cost benefit ratio, right? So I totally understand how you guys feel about that. And again, hopefully through evolving some communication skills and also some of the resources that I'll share with you afterwards, you guys will find some value with what we're doing today. I will go and ask just one more person because I'm a rule of three type of person. And let's see, I'm going to go around to, I see June Park. June, are you available to answer any one of these 4 questions up here about your experience today?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Certain conceptions, like currently, I'm a licensed staff trainer for PPLA, and I know it's just like most of the feedback that I get from the preceptors in the field is just like mentally draining, how to like kind of manage the day. Kind of set your day up for like a productive day, depending on where the trainee is on their like, are they just new graduates? So I think for myself, what I would like to get from this presentation is like maybe some better like tips of like as you were saying, like communication, like how to strategize the day, and kind of bring back anything I learned from here to those preceptors in the field.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. The good thing about asking these questions is that this could lead to future trainings, right? So again, we'll be focusing on the communication side of things. In some of the programs that we offer, we do really nail down like schedules and timelines and resources that will kind of structure things in a manner like you were talking about. And it's giving me some ideas of some trainings in the future because this feedback is really good. So I'm glad we're recording it. Will help us develop some good things going forward as well. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and move on. I appreciate everyone that was able to participate in our icebreaker. We will go to our next slide as things hopefully move here. Perfect. All right. So the objectives of today's training is number one, to understand the importance of preceptorship communication with learners, explore the key communication skills for preceptors, obtain really a clear understanding of what a preceptor and internship relationship should be and the importance of it. Enhancing the communication skills to provide a better experience on both sides, right? Because like you mentioned, it could be stressful, right? As June mentioned, it could be stressful. It's extra work, it feels like, right? And it's a two-way thing, right? It shouldn't just always be on the preceptor. And then also understand really kind of the value and the impact and the role of preceptorship when it has on healthcare workforce. Because as we know, we are really in a kind of a crisis when it comes to healthcare workforce, right? We are looking at a 13% increase over the next 10 years in the field of opportunities and openings in the healthcare field. And we're already kind of short staffed as things are, right? So this is a method and a mechanism to really, in the long term, lighten the load, right? Where it might be feeling heavy early on, and this work that we're doing now may not feel like there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There is a lot of opportunity when it comes to doing this correctly, and then building sort of competencies for things in the future. All right, so now we'll go into a little bit about the preceptor relationship. So preceptors, they really play a pivotal role in the development of interns by guiding them through complexities and in the clinical practices. The relationship is particularly crucial for healthcare professionals because this hands-on experience and the contextual learning, it impacts patient outcomes, right? You're really impacting someone's life. An internship may be at in a business office, right, or in a different industry. While mistakes are important and it would have impacts on the bottom line, you're really impacting individuals' lives, their experiences, and really we're all here to make sure those are as good as possible. I like to liken preceptorship as kind of providing a scaffolding for interns to build clinical skills and competencies through direct patient supervision and patient care. And it really allows the development for the learner to engage in complex decision-making that they wouldn't really get involved in theory, right? But also doing this under the mentorship of an experienced professional. According to a study in 2020, 70% of healthcare trainees reported feeling more confident in their clinical skills after participating in a structured preceptorship. It helped certain aspects, mostly when it came to diagnosis, patient communication, and procedural tasks. Another real big piece of the preceptor relationship is that it has to be a two-way communication with clear expectations and feedback and support for mutual growth, right? And the feedback is really essential for helping interns recognize their strengths and areas that need improvement. Like instead of waiting on like these formal evaluations, right? And when things are kind of written to paper, ongoing feedback will provide interns with immediate insights for their performance and allows them to kind of make timely corrections and adjustments. Another little statistic that I pulled out was that a 2019 survey found that 85% of interns improved their clinical decision-making abilities when they received regular feedback, as compared to 45% who only received them in periodic evaluations. So what is really preceptorship, right? Preceptorship is mentorship. There's really nothing too fancy about it, right? It's about a student's learning experience. It's about regular and consistent engagement with the learner, raising awareness of healthcare as a career pathway, and creating alignment with careers in community health, right? As we all know, is an opportunity. And why I say the mentorship is pretty self-explanatory, right? Your preceptors are there working closely with the learners side by side and making sure that they're being guided in the right direction. But aligning career goals might seem like an abstract concept, right? So in community health settings, preceptorship is really vital to showing students the rewards and the challenges of working with vulnerable populations. Preceptors, they do serve as a role model for compassionate, patient-centered care in our underserved, under-resourced environments. What is not preceptorship, right? And I know a lot of times, again, it's that balance, right? Sometimes we're short-staffed, we're hoping an intern will come in and lift some load, and that will happen eventually, depending on the role that they're in, but it really doesn't start off that way, right? So it's really not about offloading busy work, right? It's not about supplementing staff shortages. It's really a developmental experience for interns, and they really shouldn't be treated with the same expectations as employees. The focus really has to be on growth and not capacity, right? So as they end up growing, as they end up building, you're going to have individuals that work at likely to stay in the position they're in, likely to take roles if offered afterwards, and then also be really aware of kind of what they're getting into, right? And there's a big difference between going on a job your first day and learning it all, right? And at that time, preceptorship allows individuals to be really ingrained and engulfed in your culture, in your processes. So when they are employees, they're really hitting the ground running as more of an experienced individual than just having kind of the theoretical and some clinical experiences after that. So kind of we kind of understand what the role of preceptorship is. I want to discuss a little bit about the value, because it is a return on investment, right? And that investment is time, that investment is knowledge, that investment is sometimes stress levels, right? And what we're trying to accomplish. So it's important to understand what comes of it. So one of the most important ones that comes of it is an increased quality of patient care. Preceptors, they'll play a crucial role in shaping the quality of patient care and ensuring that trainees adhere to evidence-based practices. This direct mentorship helps minimize errors, enhance safety, and improve clinical outcomes. That transition from classroom to the floor, right, is really not something that is easy. But during a preceptorship, these learners can rely heavily on preceptors to guide them in applying theory to practice, ensuring that best practices are followed, which is really important when we're talking about the high stakes kind of environment that healthcare is part of. Statistical insight that I found is that studies show that clinical errors are reduced up to about 30% when well-trained preceptors are involved in guiding new healthcare workers. And that's really significant boost to patient safety and satisfaction. We talked about this a little bit on the last slide also, and there's a big value when it comes to workforce development, right? So it's going to help support the career readiness. It's going to reduce the learning curve. And on top of that, it's going to really help help increase retaining talent. And then kind of one more like unheard and unseen, and that's a value to the actual preceptor, is that it's a leadership developing opportunity, right? So preceptorship is really a platform for experienced healthcare professionals to grow their own leadership, their mentorship skills, and their teaching skills. And a lot of times you're going to find that seasoned staff, it transforms them into role models, into mentors for the next generation. It helps build essential skills when it comes to critical thinking, problem solving, and communication. And it also creates a supportive learnership and promoting leadership throughout the team. Stat that I pulled up around this is that healthcare professionals that serve as preceptors demonstrate about a 25% increase in leadership competency, and they're more likely to take on formal leadership roles in their career. So a lot of times in your career, you can feel stuck in a certain position and looking for opportunities to seize and opportunities to learn more skills that you kind of have. Preceptorship, taking on that opportunity, whether it feels like extra work, feels more difficult, right, in the long run, really allows individuals to kind of identify their leadership skills, hone those leadership skills, and then kind of bolts them into the opportunities and leadership roles later on in their careers. All right, so right now, before we get into the communication side of things, I think we've settled, the value of preceptorship, what it's like, what it is, what it's not, and whatnot. I want to make sure that we are speaking to the same audience, right? So as we're going to communicate, one of the most important pieces is understanding your audience, right? So when you can communicate properly, you understand your audience and you're speaking a message, which will get the best result out of that individual. So Aisha, if you don't mind pulling up our word cloud for this section. And what I would like you guys to do for us is to throw in some synonyms, some feelings you get when you ask the question is, what is an intern, right? I kind of want to see what our collective thought is and to make sure that we're talking about the same audience.
And are folks familiar how to access the mentee.com and you then enter the number?
Why don't you let them know, Sarah, in case they're being shy.
Yeah, so there's any questions. So basically just enter that website in mentee.com and you'll put that code in and then it'll allow you to see that. Oh, great. So some
There
folks
we
are
go. We
seeing
got
that.
it. Sorry,
Good
that was just too quick on the gun. Potential hire,
I should put
non-employee, a volunteer, hour for schools. Okay. I'm seeing in the chat, a learner aim to sharpen their skills in the field of their interest. Absolutely. Give a couple more minutes in case anyone else wants to add to this. A couple more seconds here. I'm hearing student, absolutely. Absolutely learner, absolutely student. Novice, absolutely. That's true. Sometimes that might have a negative connotation, but I don't think so. I think it's important to understand where they're leveled at. So I think that's a great point to bring up. Any more? Learning the field, beginner, and learning to ask. All right, we're moving around. We're getting some responses. So thank you for that, guys. I see leader, potential leader, absolutely. Jack of all trades, right? We need to harness their skill set. We need to kind of they obviously have ambition. They have some training, right? And you're sometimes want to be able to pinpoint their skill sets, right? To develop them and to find them a bullseye, right? Less of a jack of all trades. Perfect. So I'm seeing as things come up here. Perfect. So I think we're all pretty much on the same page here. I'm looking and see if there's anyone else in the comments. No. All right, perfect. So I think I feel pretty comfortable with where we're at when it comes to what an intern is. And that's really who we're going to be speaking to. So now we'll transition into who we're not speaking to, right? So Aisha, if you don't mind pulling up the next word cloud for what is an employee. This will be the juxtapose. We'll spend some time here to wait for some responses. Working for an organization or company. We've got learner again. Absolutely. Do we ever not learn? I don't think that ever happens. What else do we got? a colleague, a worker, right? A colleague is someone that you would consider on your same level, right? Someone that has skill set, someone that probably has some experience, an expert. We have a boss, right? Yes, I see that coming in. Thank you for sharing that, Laura. A potential leader, absolutely. So employees really are someone that's going to, again, have earned the opportunity to be what I see here, a paid member of the team, right? They've gone through probably a little extra evaluation to ensure that they're ready for the opportunity. There's expectations, yes, higher expectations for an employee than for an intern. Potential leader, sometimes they're contracted, colleague, a team player, very important when it comes to being a good employee, at least, right? We've got employees that aren't, that, you know, are hard to work with sometimes. But a professional, absolutely. And a professional is someone that has the training, but also the experience, right? And that's really the gap that we're looking at trying to lessen, right? Or trying to bridge between an intern and an employee. Perfect. Let me see if we've got some more skilled personnel. Absolutely. There's someone that can work likely on their own after a short period of time, right? Because they have the skills, they have the experience. The code to join Mentimeter. Is it right there at the top, Aisha or Sarah?
Yeah, you can use the same link that I sent. I'll send it again
Okay.
in the chat.
And then the code's up top, right? Over here.
Mhm.
Perfect. All right. No problem. All right, we'll wait a couple more seconds. You got anything else? If not, we'll move on. We'll get into some of the meat and potatoes of the training today. All right, cool. Aisha, if you can take that down, I will go ahead back to sharing. So we'll go right back. Perfect. I think you should all be seeing my screen now.
Yes, you're good to resume.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to transition a little bit into the kind of the meat and potatoes of the training today. We've understand what preceptorship is, what it is not, what the relationship of preceptors and interns should be, and we kind of focus on, we understand the value of this, right? So I wanted to start by building the foundation before we get into some of the skills, and we understand who we're talking to now, right? We're talking to learners, we're talking to individuals that are not yet skilled, or, you know, maybe have skills, but have to really harness them, have to put them in the real world. You know, I remember my transitioning from school to work, right? And it can be bumpy, right? Especially that first job, right? When you don't have that experience. I know a lot of our new hires in community health are coming without that experience. So it's really important that we've had that foundation. And I want to kind of talk about some of the importance of effective communication, because why are we going to spend time? Why do we care? It's a busy day. Well, there's a lot of reasons why it's important to have effective communication. It's really to make the most of the short period of time, the impactful period of time that you'll have with these individuals. So first and foremost, and one of the most important things, I heard it earlier, about establishing like the trust and the rapport and being able to relate to individuals. Effective communication is really the key for that to happen. Without trust and rapport, it's going to be a bumpy road, right? Everyone's going to be worried about, what does this person really mean? I don't quite understand it, right? But having that rapport and trust with your learners and making them more comfortable and open to learning, right? There's a vulnerability that comes along with someone that you know is here to kind of almost like, you know, are you doing it well, right? They're at this moment, they're at this precipice, this fork in the road where they've been studying and now they're practicing, and that doesn't go well for that individual. They might be in a whole nother world for their career, right? So there's some vulnerability. So be able to establish that trust and that rapport through effective communication is going to make everything else you have to do with that individual a lot easier. So when interns, they feel heard, understood, and they're just more likely to be open and comfortable and open to that feedback and that learning experience. And, you know, as right as rain, there will be conflicts that arise. So it plays a big role in being able to resolve conflicts, right? A skill we'll talk about, active listening to these concerns and engaging in constructive dialogue, can really help identify root causes of issues and work to collaboratively, excuse me, with interns to find solutions. But some of the stuff that, like, again, is behind the scenes, some of the unintended effect, right, is the long-term effects it has when it comes to the workforce in general, when it comes to healthcare. And we talked about this before, but it's going to create a program that attracts more learners, right? So the more we can attract into our pipeline of community health, the more likely we'll have people that make it through the funnel effect, as I call it, right? As people fall off, they find that it might not be for them. But the more we put on top of that and get them through that process, the more likely we'll have individuals that are capable, excited, both culturally and skill-wise, to be able to work inside of community health. So a commitment to effective communication really enhances a program's reputation and appeal, which would make it much more attractive for options for prospective interns, right? If you can think of industries outside of healthcare, right? Like if you get people like sometimes fight for internship opportunities with Googles of the world or a lot of these tech companies, right? Because they understand that it's really their it's got a good reputation, right? And it's their way in to success in their field. So if we can really harness a strong preceptorship program through effective communication, it has a really strong impact. Go ahead and move on to our next. Here we go. It's easier when I click. All right. So we've got about 6 elements of communication that we'll get into today. We'll discuss a little bit about these elements. And then after discussing about them, we will do some role playing. I have some scenarios that I was able to put together to really kind of put some of these skills to the test. And I know everyone loves role plays and breakouts, but it's the only way to really learn is to do and to practice over and over again, right? So as we're going through these topics, I will be going through them. If any questions do come up, please either raise a hand and we'll call on you, or throw it in the chat and we'll make sure to answer these questions as they come up, because I feel it's sometimes best to talk about it in the moment, right? And if you've got a question, it's likely someone else is thinking something similar to you. So as you can see up on the screen, we're going to talk about active listening, right? And active listening is really a mechanism to help prevent misunderstandings, gets clear information, builds trust, and it really kind of accurately gauges an intern's need and be able to help the appropriate support, right? Clarity and clear, concise communication is very important, because this is where you're really expressing ideas and instructions in a kind of an understandable and straightforward manner. Usually when I hire on a new staff member, we go through these moments of we're kind of calibrating. That's what I always call it, because I feel like I'm expressing something that I understand what I said, but when it gets that other individual, there's something missing, right? There's something that was lost in translation, even though it was just one-on-one. So in order to calibrate quicker, faster, right, for them to understand kind of maybe not always what you said, but what you meant, right? Clear communication and concise communication is very important. One of the most important things, though, when someone's a learner, or what I would call kind of vulnerable, right? They're looking to you as a mentor, as someone that is in the position in which they want to be, and they're showing some vulnerabilities, is empathy, right? Empathy is going to foster a supportive learning environment, and go back to that key word, building trust, and at the same time enhancing the intern's motivation, right? So if they feel an empathetic approach, they're going to feel your investment, your concern, and their concerns, and that's just going to get them more motivated and more engaged, right? So if we're spending time with individuals and taking away from our core responsibilities, I want to do that with someone that's motivated and engaged, right? So you have an impact on that by bringing empathy to the communication. Doing a lot of these things together and asynchronous synchronized helps with conflict resolution, right? Effective conflict resolution will prevent any sort of escalation issues, will maintain positive learning environments, and promotes collaboration, right? And this last one, nonverbal communication, my wife will tell me this one all the time. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? So you can really do all the first 5 really well. But if your nonverbal communication is not in line with your intentions, then it's really going to kind of ruin the message, right? So we'll go into a little bit more deeper on all these right now, but I just wanted to kind of just introduce some of these concepts. So active listening, we probably heard this plenty of times before. It's really a fundamental skill for effective communication. It's attentive listening without interruption. It's being able to identify the nonverbal cues, kind of show engagement, and reflecting back on what a speaker has said to confirm understanding, right? So a lot of times we may think we understand what someone's saying. What I found in my experience is to confirm such understanding, right? So what I'm hearing you say is, right, is a great little tool, a great little kind of preface to anything that might be coming up in a conversation wise. Sometimes we like to get to the point and think we have the solution, but we have to make sure that we understand what's going on there first. Statistically, right, it just highlights a positive impact on satisfaction, retention rates, when you integrate active listening practices. A report by the International Journal of Teaching and Learning in Higher Education highlighted that active learning practices were associated with a 20% increase in student retention and success, right? 20% might sound low, right? But that's a significant improvement. If we're talking about retention and keeping individuals in our pipeline, keeping 20% more of those individuals and having them be skilled and strong is going to make a really big impact when it comes to our workforce struggles. One thing always to be aware of, right, is to avoid listening to respond, right? We're listening, thinking about what we're going to say next, as opposed to really hearing what they have to say. Bias listening, meaning like we've got our mind made up, and no matter what that individual says, we're going to be kind of in the same place. Or selective listening with some kind of like the opportunities of where, you know, we're only really focused on certain things as opposed to hearing the entire message that might be out there. Again, if any questions do pop up on these, please feel free to raise your hand or throw it in the chat. We talked about this a little bit earlier, which is our clear, concise communication. When communicating, it's really important to be clear and concise. There's a lot of medical jargon and terminology that can be used. I've transitioned in roles in the past, and a lot of industries I've worked in or companies I've worked in have used acronyms. And you can't lose someone faster that doesn't know something well enough to use language that isn't maybe as common and easily understandable to those from outside of the industry that are now getting their feet wet inside of their industry. So in this educational and any professional environment, Clear communication really ensures that the intended message is understood correctly. That information can be presented in a structured, straightforward manner. It reduces the risk of misinterpretation, which again would be what we call a burden on time, right? When that's already, again, our most precious commodity. A survey that was taken by the International Association of Business Communicators said that 70% of employees that reported that communicating barriers prevented them from effectively doing their job. 70%, that's very significant, right? So simplified language and clear structure of information can really help reduce those barriers. I see here during active listening, how often or what is the frequency, to clarify this question in the chat was during active listening, how often or what frequency, to clarify, validate, to know what the information is understood as meant to be. So a lot of this communication skills are gonna fall on your ability to understand individuals, right? And to be present in the moment, right? So I don't know if I can prescribe how often it should happen, but I feel like there's times when you're communicating with individuals and it's clicking, we're on the same page. Usually you're going to see body language. People are going to look proud about it. There's going to be smiles on individuals' faces, right? You're going to hear positive language in the communication. I think there's an energy that is exchanged when people are communicating well, right? And people understand each other. There's usually some enthusiasm around the conversation. So for what I use in my experience is when the conversation doesn't feel like it's going so smoothly, when the conversation may have some negative connotations, right? Where the body language might not be as positive as it would be when you're kind of clicking with somebody. So I think it's important, again, the active part of it, right, is to be engaged in that dynamic and to really use some of that internal, for lack of a better word, spider sense, right? To know that this is a good conversation, this is going in the right direction, right? We are hearing each other. But I also think that one time where it could be prescriptive is when there's a specific task being asked to be taken, right? And when you want to make sure that's clear, right? So what I'm hearing you is that you had this struggle with X, Y, or Z elemental P. Is that correct, right? So before we go to solve problems, I think for our learners, it's important to understand that we understand what that problem is. So I think it's kind of part of a feeling side of it, but also part when you're looking to give that specific advice, make sure that that's what they're looking for, right? Make sure that you understood the question properly. Make sure you understood the problem, right? And that you're answering the entire problem. And then when you give that answer, simply ask, did that answer what you're looking for? Right? That's a really easy one that I use. Did that answer what you were looking for, right? Because when that allows it really open-ended to say, yeah, you answered this, but I still have a question on this, right? And you're welcoming that feedback, and you're encouraging that to kind of happen over and over again. So I hope that answers that question. If you had anything else that wanted clarity on that one, please feel free to ask. So yeah, so we'll go back to clear and concise communication. Really, it could be issues, right? We feel sometimes we're saying things in a precise manner, but it's really our lenses with our knowledge and our understanding of what we know about things. It may be very complex for the individual on the other side. But using simple language and structuring that information, and then consistently doing so, I think is important. because more consistently you do something, the better you're going to get at it, the easier it's going to be clear and concise. The big one that we talked about a little bit earlier is also empathy and emotional intelligence. And if I had to rank this kind of on the hierarchy of the skills, I would probably put this 1A, 1B when it comes to nonverbal communication, because the feels are important, right? It's again, there's a reason why there's a saying, it's not what you said, but how you said it, right? We can have all the best intentions in the world, giving feedback, giving direction, correcting actions isn't always easy it's not easy on either side of the pendulum, right? But if you can invest in and create some skills when it comes to empathy and emotional intelligence, it's likely that your message is going to be received without a defensive block, right? Where only certain things come through, right? You'll have an individual that is open for the feedback because they know you do have their best interest in mind, right? So again, empathy and emotional intelligence is really the key to understanding and connecting with your learners. Without the connection, there really is no communication. By recognizing and validating their emotions and experiences, it shows support. And back to that word again, building trust, right? Any learner or in a professional environment, building trust is really essential. When educators or leaders can show empathy, they're also demonstrating and teaching that they understand the value of the learner's perspectives and feelings. And again, that atmosphere is going to be one in which there's really a good back and forth, right? There's really openness and candidness without the defensiveness that allows people to be much more effective when teaching and when it comes to learning. So when done right, emotional intelligence will enhance engagement and motivation. It'll improve learning outcomes. It'll always facilitate effective conflict resolution. And top of my list also there is supporting mental health and well-being, right? And I think we all understand the benefits of mental health and well-being when it comes to being our best. I'm going to move on to our next slide. Again, any questions that pop up, please feel free to interrupt. All right, we'll get down to constructive feedback. And this one, I believe, is as difficult on the one giving the feedback as the one receiving it, right? All of us are in this position, take on the opportunity to be preceptors or to be managers or to be teachers because we absolutely want to help the individuals that are in front of us, right? We understand the importance, we understand the impact, and that's all the good, feel good side of it, right? But then sometimes the feedback has to come out, right? If you build and good relationships, it could be really easy, right? But sometimes the conversations aren't so easy. They aren't so pretty. They aren't so fun. So having skill sets and communication skills to do things constructively can really benefit you. And it's something that's very important to the learner's growth, right? That feedback is something that's going to make them from intern to employee, right? Those words that we used earlier, the differences between this feedback is really the bridge that that connects those two gaps. So feedback in general should be timely and specific. It should be focusing on behaviors rather than personal attributes, right? It's really important when you do give feedback, you kind of balance it out, right? Kind of make someone feel good, but then also understand there's some opportunity at the same time. But when you do balance both of them with areas of improvement as well, it really helps the learners recognize what they're doing well and where they can improve. It allows them to be open because you've seen them successful here, but here's also some opportunity to get some more success that might not quite be showing itself. This will help drive continuous improvement, right? In any learning and professional development, that feedback is going to help individuals understand their current performance, and provide a roadmap for improvement. Promotes self-reflection and learning, right? In those environments, when done correctly, learners will feel safe to kind of self-critique their own work, right? When feedback is done with heart, I want to say, it will lead to a deeper self-awareness and turn someone from a defensive mind state into a growth mind state, right? And so, like, a little example that I threw up on the slide here is to balance the communication, right? The feedback, positive, and then opportunity, right? I won't call it negative, opportunity. I always like to lead with the good. We always lead with the good, right? Good news or bad news, lead with the good news. So for an example here, I appreciate your thoroughness in patient assessments, right? One area to focus on could be in improving your time management during shifts, right? So we understand there's patient loads, there's an opportunity to see as many individuals as possible, right? But you also want to balance that with thoroughness. But sometimes too heavy on either side is really not good. So showing that balance, giving that kind of balanced feedback is going to allow for a lot of growth with that individual. All right, move on to our next. I don't see any questions. Conflict resolution. So as right as rain, as I said before, there will be conflict in your opportunities to precept. Effective conflict resolution is an absolutely important aspect of preceptorship. Finding ways to address conflicts calmly, respectfully, and focusing on finding solutions that benefit all parties involved will absolutely have an impact on the time you're investing in that individual, right? You can get it right the first time in that communication where communications don't break down. I need to take a break, come back to when cooler heads prevail or whatever it may be. There's a real time element when it comes to doing this right the first way through. You want to use active listening, right? You want to use empathy to be able to understand the different perspectives. You have to be open to hearing the other side of the coin. If not, it's not going to be a great resolution, right? For an example, you say things like, let's discuss our concerns openly, right? You're calling it is what it, calling a spade, you're calling it is what it is, right? And let's discuss our concerns openly, but let's find a resolution that works for both of us. Having your intent really being out there and understanding we're not on the same page here, but let's do things to make sure we are on the same page will be very important in finding resolutions. So in a learning environment, it really thrives in collaborative and supportive atmosphere. Conflicts, if they're not handled, they're going to lead to stress. They're going to lead to reduced morale and a breakdown in communication. It's going to have an impact on the student's success, right? If they're too stressed about what's going on in the resolution of the conflict, right? They're going to find that they're focused on what went wrong in that communication as opposed to what they're doing and what they're trying to learn.
Carlos, there's a question.
Absolutely.
What is the different type of communication when dealing with an intern as opposed to an employee?
I think that's a great question. And I wouldn't say these ones are worlds apart, maybe as some of the other all the other skill sets might be, right? But I think what the difference is really understanding the expectation between the two, right? So with an intern, you're likely to have to be a little bit more empathetic, right? You're likely to have to be a little bit more of a attentive listener, because I would say they're probably a little bit more fragile at that point, right? So the investment and the time and understanding where they're coming from creates a safe place for them to be open to listening to what that corrective, action might be, right? Or open to like seeing it in a different way. With employees, you know, unfortunately, as it may be, sometimes things are how they're going to have to be, right? In this opportunity, there's both a learning experience for the individuals, right? But you may be dealing with a very senior individual when it comes to dealing with an employee, right? And understanding sort of the audience and understanding what would best resonate with the individual is going to help you kind of come to a better resolution, right? So I know when I'm working with someone that might be a brand new hire for me, there's a little bit more talking about the foundation and the whys of why something is happening, right? Or the why behind how things are done. A lot of times the employees have kind of been there, done that. They understand the why. They just might believe that they've got a better way of doing it, right? And it's just a different, it's again, not light years apart, but there are some nuances between the two. And I think, you know, you're going to have to be maybe a little bit more empathetic with conflict resolution when it comes with interns and learners, because they're a little bit fresher, right? They're a little bit less calloused. They maybe haven't had an opportunity to be part of in a conflict resolution before, right? And employees, you know, with that experience may have that kind of experience with them already. So hopefully that helps answer that question, and anything follow up on that. I'd love to provide more clarity to it. So I think I left off at student success, right? The conflict resolution is also going to help build relationships, right? It's going to create this mutual environment of respect, collaboration, and problem solving. And again, at the end of the day, it's also going to improve patient care, right? Because when conflict remains unresolved, it's going to distract both the preceptor and the student, right? When their primary focus should be patient care. If these conflicts are managed effectively, then the team's going to work much more cohesively. It's going to lead to better decision-making and a lot fewer errors. At the end of the day, that's going to lead to higher patient satisfaction, which is really why we're all here. But good questions again. Appreciate you guys bringing them up. Last but not least, and again, up at the top when it comes to me, is our nonverbal communication, right? Nonverbal communication can greatly influence how your message is received. So it's very important to pay attention to any kind of body language that is being given to you or that you may be unaware that you're giving off, right? And that's going to be body language, facial expression, and tone of voice. So, you know, as they say, maintaining an open posture, using eye contact, right? These things are going to help you convey that you're engaged and that you're approachable, right? Nothing's worse when you got something important to say to your boss and they don't even turn to you. Like, what do you have to, what's going on, right? You feel like, oh, I don't mean to bother you. The communication breaks down, right? You put, you know, you have a piece of paper, you're reading something, you put it down. It's kind of this thing called be here now, right? You put it down, you give the individual your attention. They feel like they've got the floor, they've got your attention. And that individual doesn't feel like they're interrupting or they're bothering, and they're more likely to be expressive, communicative, and you know, the conversation is likely to be much better because one, you're paying full attention, and they also feel comfortable in that conversation, right? There's a study that was done in educational settings, and they're saying that students are 30% more likely to engage and communicate with their mentors who display an open body language, right? So they may have insecurities going on in their head. If they don't feel you're approachable, and that's part of your nonverbal communication stance, right? They may not bring up something to you that they have a question on, which might have an impact on their success, might have an impact on patient care, right? Being known as being open, right, is going to allow you to hear that information, not to be hidden, and to really impact that individual so they have a successful environment. They say 65% of people rely heavily on facial expressions to interpret emotions during conversations. So again, it doesn't matter what you say. 45% of it is what you say, 65% of it is how you look or how it comes off out of your mouth when you are saying it, right? It dramatically shapes a student's perception on feedback. So at the end of the day, when done correctly, trainees are more likely to trust and respond positively to instructions that are given in a warm, measured tone. And I can attest to that when dealing with my children, my 2 young girls, right? When I'm in the right moment, when I have the right body language, when I'm approaching things in an open manner, it's heard, right? There is no defense mechanisms. It's open, it's engaged, and there's learning that goes involved with that. So at that point, we've talked about our elements of effective communication. I'll pause for a second if anyone has any questions or wanted any clarification on any of those topics that were discussed. I do see a question here, Jennifer, thank you. Does it impact interns/staff if a manager's door, if a manager or supervisor's door is usually closed? Yes. The short answer is yes. The long answer is depends, right? So if you've done the work before that and you've laid out expectations, say you're the supervisor, and you've laid out expectations that it doesn't matter if my door's shut or not, please knock on it. Please come to me with information like that you feel is important. Go ahead and do so. And then when they do knock on the door, you don't like make them feel uncomfortable for knocking on the door or shooing them out of your office, then it wouldn't really necessarily make an impact. But it is a barrier, right? It's absolutely a barrier. You know, in my roles and leadership roles, I only really shut my door when necessary, because of that one reason. But I also made it a point to communicate that you are my priority, right? And there may be times where, you know, moments where you won't be my top priority, but overall, your success and what you're doing is my priority. So it really depends on what kind of culture the leadership the leader is fostering, right? So if that leader is known to be a good communicator, listens attentively, is empathetic, right? Does conflict resolution well, uses, you know, nonverbal communication, you know, effectively, then, you know, people are probably going to feel more comfortable to knock on that door and to interrupt, because that's really what's going on, right? Interrupting. But if you don't do that well and your door's shut, no one's going to knock on that door, right? They're going to go to a peer, or they might do it on their own, and that's where the mistakes may come in. So, you know, the short answer is yes. The long answer, it really depends on the culture that the leader creates, and it could have less of an impact. But yeah, absolutely, a door closed is a barrier. Whether a big barrier or not, again, depends on the culture. But it's absolutely a barrier. I appreciate you asking that question. All right, I'll pause for a little bit more in case we have any good questions. Okay, we'll move on. So I kind of wanted to bring it back to the healthcare setting. Listening skills and effective communication is in your personal life, in your professional life, in all industries, no matter what you do, is important. But I wanted to liken it back to the healthcare field to kind of hammer home the importance, right? We all know the importance of preventative medicine, right? We all know, you know, the things that we should be doing and the checkups that should go on that are going to help us be healthy. So I want to take a little moment to kind of discuss how I see effective communication being similar to preventative medicine and mentorship and preceptorship. So just like a vaccination helps prevent illnesses by preparing the body, active listening is going to prevent misunderstandings by preparing the mind to fully absorb the messenger's the speaker's message, right? Clear instructions is just like regular healthcare screenings. It's going to help identify potential issues early on and preventing larger problems down the road. Regular feedback, just like routine checkups, is going to ensure that progress is on track and addressing minor issues before they become much more significant. Being empathetic, right? Empathy, just like preventative care, addresses emotional needs before stress or frustration can escalate into conflict. Using nonverbal cues is like monitoring vital signs that provide key information about someone's emotional state that words alone will not convey. And resolving conflicts is like treating a wound, right? It requires timely attention and care that will ensure that healing and prevent any further damage that's out there. So hopefully that drew a little connection between the two. It kind of puts a little bit of an abstract concept to something that's a little bit more concrete. I do see a question here in the chat. It says, can we send an email to know about a meeting? Can we send an email to know about meeting if the doors close, or call to see if it's possible to meet? Yeah, I think that's absolutely a way to avoid that barrier. I know in my world, we would have text chains, right? And if I'm likely the door's shut, it's likely I'm in a meeting at that moment, but my phone is usually free. You know, I multitask. So when, you know, I get a text message like, can I come in real quick? I have a quick question. You know, that might be a way. If they are on their computer, they might not see an email. They might not be able to answer a phone. What I have found is that as the leader in that dynamic, am able to kind of send a text, right, and have that communication. So, you know, again, the key is that the leader creates an environment for that sort of thing. You know, as leader, I was always available, right? Even when I was unavailable, you could always text me, right? And of course, sometimes I miss the text, right? And sometimes it's just not a good time, and I can't prioritize that individual that wants my moments. But when I am free, that's the first thing I do. Once my door's open, I saw the text message come in, walk directly over that individual or find that individual, communicate with that individual to find out how I could assist in that one issue that I might not have been available to do so at the time. Good questions. I do appreciate the engagement. Okay, so before I move on to our role play and our breakout sessions, are there any other questions or any other things, any comments anyone wants to add, anything that they feel compelled to express? All right. Doesn't look like so. Oops. All right, perfect. I didn't move the slide in the last one, so I apologize about that. So here we're going to do some breakout sessions. I think we'll set it up for about 20 minutes or so. So that way, you know, maybe 25 minutes or so. So that way everyone has an opportunity to play a preceptor role in these breakouts. You should have received 6 scenarios in a Word document as a resource for the training. If not, do you mind putting that in the chat, a link to it or the document in the chat, so that way they can access? Perfect. So you'll see in the chat, there's scenarios. There's 6 scenarios. The goal here for the breakout is we'll break out into groups of 3. Everyone will play a role: preceptor, intern, and observer. You'll choose I guess you let whoever wants to choose. I think the preceptor gets to choose, since they'll be tough on them. The scenario 1 through 6, which will be one of the skills we talked about. There are instructions on the role play scenario, so please follow the instructions on the role play scenarios. The observer should have the opportunity to provide some feedback to the preceptor, some good done wells, some opportunities, do betters next time. And I would like for you guys to rotate the roles and or the scenarios. You don't have to pick the same scenario. You can change them up the scenarios until each person in the breakout plays the role of a preceptor. So any questions before we break out on the instructions? Try to make it pretty easy, not too complex. All right, no questions. Actually, if you don't mind breaking them up into groups of 3 for me.
All right, I just opened the rooms. So they should start being sent into them.
All right, looks like everybody is back. I jumped in a couple rooms. I heard some good conversations going. I hope everyone had the opportunity to be able to role play. Those that found some value in this, I was happy to hear some good stuff going on in some of those roles. So sorry for ear hustling, but I wanted to facilitate where I could. But I heard some really good stuff going on. So I'm glad that was of some value. Hope you guys felt the same way. You will have these scenarios sent to you, so there's opportunities for you to do more of this in the future, as well as some resources that we'll talk about in a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead back to sharing my screen here. Okay. All right, looks like we're good to go. I'm gonna go to our next slide. And so I do want to hear some feedback about kind of what went on in the breakout rooms. If there was any aha moments, I threw a couple questions up here on the screen. Feel free to use the chat or to come off mute to answer any of these questions that I have up here on the screen. So, were there any? Did you see trust come up? Was trust a thing? I know I spoke about it a lot. That maybe helped or hindered interaction. Was the communication between the preceptor and internship, did it help at all? Was there moments you had to adjust your tone or body language? Any takeaways that you may have had? Any feedback on any of the questions that might be up on the board now? All right, I'm gonna popcorn. Oh, there we go. I knew I was actually gonna popcorn to you because you've been very active, so I appreciate that. So go ahead, Anu.
Carlos, thank you first of all for this training. It was really, really nice. I worked with Fernando and Laura. So Fernando was the preceptor for one of our situations, and then the at the time I was a preceptor, and then Laura was an observer once, and then she was the student at the other time. We got to know all of us really well, and then how well Fernando was able to be a preceptor, the way he talked, and it was like he was already trained in doing this. So we really learned a lot, and then how we were able to bring out what the student might need. That was really good. And then me being a preceptor, I think for Laura, I think I felt like she also felt more comfortable. So, I mean, what we learn about this is actively communicating and letting the person know, be it the employee or the intern, to know that there's help always available. And then they should be, they should not be fearful to ask for help.
Right.
Once they are able to communicate clearly what they need, I think most of the organizations are able to provide the help that they need, so they are able to achieve their goals. In this case, maybe they become more successful interns.
Perfect.
I hope Laura and Fernando can speak up more about this.
You might be the only brave one here today, but but I do appreciate your interaction today. Was there anyone else that had any feedback, anything that they wanted to share for the greater good of the team? All right. Well, I'll take the silence as we're good to go and we feel good about everything. And that this was something that was helpful and hopefully something that will make an impact. Really the communication, it's not complex. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? It's layered. You bring your personal biases, you bring professional biases, you bring your perception to the table. So while it feels very simple of just having a conversation, being open, and being there as a mentor and expressing that desire for trust and rapport. We all know in our personal and professional relationships, they don't always go how we expect them, right? So it's a simple concept, but it's not an easy one. So hopefully today's training has given you some tools, some insight, if not reinforced a lot of the things that you're currently doing, and maybe provided some support there as well. So right now, we're going to be wrapping things up. Again, effective communication, it is the skills that are essential for fostering positive learning environment, right? And promoting a learner in a development through the preceptorship, right? Practice and reinforcement of those skills are really a key to preceptorship. So hopefully you guys feel that way after today. There will be some resources that we will be sending out to you as a participant in today's training. I understand that successful precepting does not just end with communication, right? So there'll be some things that we've acquired through our time that have been used in different trainings and through our pipeline programs and whatnot to prepare individuals to be strong preceptors and build a strong internship program. These will be emailed to you. We have a 1-minute preceptor. We have 5 micro skills on clinical teaching. We have a document on mastering the preceptor role, which go into things outside of communication, time management, and structuring things in a really good manner. And then the role play scenarios that we have today as something to be able to utilize in your downtime. I guess it doesn't sound like fun, but but maybe you're our preceptor and you want to train the next preceptor down, right? Being able to have some scenarios at your fingertips may be helpful. So at CCALAC, this is my little plug for what I do here in workforce. We have opportunities to be preceptors, right? Which again has a huge impact on the workforce in general, but also on your own individual leadership skills and development. And we would love to engage as many individuals in our programs and our pipeline programs to really help workforce reinforcement and ensure that we have the staffing that we need in our community health centers. So we do run 4 pipeline programs here at CCALAC under my supervision. The first one is our AHEC Scholars Program. Preceptors will be guiding AHEC scholars through clinical rotations, community health projects, and a lot of different types of learning to really help students in various healthcare disciplines gain exposure to underserviced and under-resourced populations. We have an allied health internship program where allied health professionals will work under the guidance of experienced preceptors. And this program will help build technical and clinical skills while introducing them to any day-to-day responsibilities of working in our community clinics. We also run a family nurse practitioner residency program. And this program will obviously help mentor newly graduated FNPs as we offer a clinical supervision and share expertise to help these FNPs transition from being a student into practicing professionals. And we also offer an AmeriCorps program, and preceptors in the AmeriCorps program will support members, guiding them through various tasks like patient education, outreach, and care coordination. And these mentors are there to ensure that the AmeriCorps members develop a deep understanding of community health and the critical services that are provided by health centers. So there are some opportunities if it's something that you're interested in to develop some skill sets for yourselves, but also to support your health centers when it comes to workforce and staff shortages. So at this point, I do want to say thank you. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your participation in today's training. I hope everyone found it useful. We are a resource here at CCALAC for workforce solutions in healthcare between our pipeline programs, our hiring resources, and our training opportunities. So I'm the guy. If you want to know more about it, please take a screenshot or snap a picture of my contact information here. I will, oops, wrong way. I'll go back. Can I go back? Whoops, I think I lost it. Let's go back here. Sorry about that. We'll pull up the contact information. There we go. Sorry about that. A little fumble. In case you want more information on how we can support, right? We might not have spoke about it today, but we have a lot of opportunities to build community through, partnerships and collaboration to really support any workforce needs that might be out there. So there's my information if you feel compelled to reach out to me. Otherwise, thank you all very much for your time today. And I hope you came away with something that will help you in the future. Have a good one.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Before we log out, I just want to check in with the audience and make sure that there are any questions or curiosities based on anything you've heard since we've been together today. Just give it one moment. All right. So hearing none, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Please take 2 minutes to share your perspective and your training experience on an evaluation that will pop up on your screen automatically at the end of our session. As a reminder, all materials in the session recording will be sent via a follow-up email. So please check your inbox and junk folders from the training center. Thank you again. We look forward to seeing you at another training in the future. Have a great rest of your day. And once again, thank you, Carlos.
Have a great one.